$2 Tuesdays at WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, where you can get the hottest handicappers' best bet or daily package for only $2.
Hey guys, welcome in on a very happy Tuesday to you now here, the 21st of, what is today? February, I believe. That's what we're dealing with here. And we've got plenty of college basketball on tap here tonight. So we're going to do our very best here to point you in the right direction with some of these marquee matchups. And we'll do it, of course, with three of the best here today at WagerTalk.com as we welcome back in the man who refuses to lose. And You'll understand what I'm talking about here in a minute. Mr. Marco D'Angelo in the house. Adam Trigger, catch him now before, while you still can. He'll be on a plane traveling around the country here to a gymnasium near you shortly, as well as Mr. Rob Vino. Never met a highlight play he didn't like. Gentlemen, welcome in on this Tuesday here. All right, Marco. So let's talk about these numbers because this is some obnoxious shit here. Can you please explain to me now? This is are we talking about from Thanksgiving until now? These numbers are all. This is absurd here, Marco. We're talking about a 91-48 record in basketball since Thanksgiving. That is out of control, man.
I'm trying, guys. Want to keep it going, but I just want to say something to the listeners, viewers on today's show. This is a Wager Talk first. This is the first time you've had myself, Trig, and Rob on the same show, and I'll pray for all of you because we are the three longest-winded analysis guys at Wager Talk. So if you can get live betting and take the over, just smash it right now for all you got.
Oh, you're done talking. I'm sorry. Usually I go get a sandwich and then come back and you're still rolling. But good to see you, Marco. Pleasure. What is going on here, Trig? I know you've got all sorts of plans here coming up shortly. You're going to be traveling. I know Baylor, Waco is in your future here. Maybe New Orleans. But I know you got to have something ready to roll tonight at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, first of all, it's Tuesday. You don't have to do bet on it. We're not doing hustle later. So this is the perfect day to just, have the long show. So everyone
should. Good point.
And there's a bunch of good games to talk about. So, we'll go into detail on those. Yes, I'm going to Waco, Texas this weekend. I'll be there with CT Bets. If you're around, hit us up. It's like a 2 p.m. game, Baylor, Texas on Saturday. So we're going to be around like all day. So if you're in the area, let us know. Looking forward to that. Yes, Joe, I am flying through New Orleans on the way home, hitting Tulane, Wichita State. So looking forward to it. It's going to be a good weekend of basketball.
Oh, you're damn straight it's going to be here. And Rob Vino, what is going on, Vino? Continuing to crush it. NBA, nice little reprieve here, which means we've got ourselves some college basketball to focus on here. The NBA will be back here later on in the week. But what do you got rolling for us tonight here in college hoops?
Well, today is the day that I was chosen to be the $2 handicapper.
Nice.
So college basketball, $2 play up and available right now at WagerTalk.com. College basketball season's been good to me. 55-31 start here, about 64% and about 64 units worth of profit over those 86 plays. So look to continue the ball rolling here with college hoops tonight. Once again, $2 play up and available, WagerTalk.com.
All right, plenty of opportunities here, guys, to make it a very profitable Tuesday, including with Vino and the $2 Tuesday handicap. You can go grab that best bet now for $2 while we start. And where else? How about that Big 12 here tonight, where the Baylor Bears laying 1.5 here at Kansas State here with that total being 148 here, 7 o'clock Eastern time. That'll be the tip. And gotta love these late season revenge spots here, Marco, especially when you gave up 55 in a second half to Kansas over the weekend to get your ass handed to you. The Baylor Bears, do you trust them here on the road to get that revenge tonight?
Well, I'm not going to go for the game itself because I think the value in this one is in the total. And looking at that first meeting, first glance, knee jerk reaction is going to be to play the over in this one. They played a barn burner, 97-95, but that was in overtime. They scored 20 points between the two teams in overtime. What I'm taking away from that first meeting is that if you look at it, Kansas State shot 53% for the game, including an insane 44% from three-point range. Baylor was just 8 of 25 in that game from three. But what I'm also looking at in that game is they were blowing the whistle left and right in that first meeting. They went to the foul line 59 times in the game, and they were hitting their foul shots. That also contributed to this high-scoring game. Tonight, I think it's going to be a different game. I don't think they're going to call the fouls the way they did in the first meeting, and I'm going to look to the under in this one. Kansas State, they've held 6 of their last 8 opponents to 45% or less shooting. So because of that first meeting in the high scoring, we're getting some value with the total here. It's at 148. I think this game, winning team is going to be around 75 or less. So that puts me under the total. I'm going to go ahead and take this one under 148. If you put the gun to my head, probably would lean to Baylor in this game, but I don't trust them after that second half they had on Saturday. I was quite happy with the second half that they had because I was on Kansas with that one on several shows that I did, and they got the second half cover for us.
It was, it set up perfectly for a great second half bet as well. And Trig, watching, we've talked a lot about a lot of these second half opportunities that presenting themselves this season. Kansas, obviously at home down, is usually a pretty good bet to be able to make some sort of comeback here. But I don't know. Do you hold it against Baylor? Do you think they bounce back? It is a revenge spot. Who do you trust here?
I trust Baylor more, Joe. I think Baylor's the better team. Listen, Kansas State reminds me, I'm going to use a baseball parallel here. They're like the pitcher that gets called up and no one really knows what to expect from them. They have a couple good starts and then they start to get shelled because they're just not actually that good. Like, that's what I think Kansas State is. Sorry, Kelly. That's just what they are. They were supposed to finish last in this conference, okay? They probably won't, but they're more like the bottom of this league than the top. I don't care what the ranking next to their name says. They're more like the bottom of this league, which is still a very good league. And, like, the bottom of this league is still going to have teams in the NCAA tournament, but teams are starting to learn how to game plan for Tang and for what he's doing there. No one knows him better than Scott Drew, and vice versa. I think you have to say that both ways. Obviously, Jerome Tang was an assistant at Baylor prior to getting the Kansas State job. And I'm buying into the regression that we're seeing with Kansas State. They haven't won back-to-back games since mid-January. They're 3-5 in their last 8 games. Thought they were a little fortunate to win over the weekend. Now, the one thing I will say that makes me not want to go against Kansas State here, probably the only thing, is the Octagon, a great home venue. I believe they're 11-4 against the spread this year at home. Of course, they beat Baylor in the first meeting, but again, Baylor was still getting things figured out back then. I think Baylor right now, guys, is a play on for me. I would only look to back Baylor probably going forward. JTT is back. He helps them defensively. Their guards, Baylor's guards are as good as there is in the country, in my opinion. I'm still high on this Baylor team. They're one of 4 teams I took before the season to win the national championship. I still think they have a team that could play their way into they have the potential to be that top of the line team because of their guards. Whereas Kansas State, I think they're going to continue to just kind of, that they'll win one here and there. But I just don't think that this is like a really top 25 team in the country right now. They got off to an insanely hot start. We've seen them come back toward the pack. Baylor's not going to be a best bet for me because I just don't want to fade Kansas State at home where they can step up and give a huge effort. But there's no question in my mind that Baylor's the better team. It's the only way I would go here.
Yeah, it feels, Vino, like we've got just a more experienced and a little more talented Baylor Bears team here coming in off of a loss and revenge on their mind. Is it enough to get you to back them here in this one?
Well, I'll say this, Joe, to both of these guys points ahead of me. Marco's point on the under. Kansas State has just lost their offense. I mean, their offensive numbers the last 5 games, and they've all gone under the total, their last 5 games at least. And then the 5 games they played in February are 4-1 to the under. But these game totals are 116, 143, 135, 114, 126, with KSU scoring 68 or less in 4 of the 5. And the hot start that they got off to was pretty much predicated on their offensive ability, especially Noel and Johnson. I think Noel has hit a Texas Tech talked a few weeks back about maybe they should have defended Noel differently. And I think what they suggested, Adam talked about game planning for KSU, and I think that's probably what he was referring to here, is that teams have figured out that if you just cut the head off of this KSU team, then you have pretty good luck against them as far as their offense is concerned. Noel shot poorly last 3 games, shot poorly 4 of the last 5. And he and Keontae Johnson, they combined for 56 points in the first game. So can they match that this time around? I'm not sure. It was a huge comeback, not point-wise, but I think aesthetically on Saturday, Iowa State for the first half looked like they were just going to totally shut KSU down. KSU came back, played a nice first 5 minutes of the second half, and wound up winning and covering. I don't know that they get away with that here against Baylor. Baylor, obviously you're going to get these kind of quotes after a second half like they had Saturday against Kansas, but they talked about lack of energy, lack of defense, and I'd imagine they bring it here against KSU. It's fresh in their mind. It's a Tuesday game after a Saturday loss. So I would probably lean with both of these guys here. I would say that if you're looking at total, under 148 looks pretty good. Again, we're looking at almost the end of February where everything tightens up. I mean, the winner of this game becomes the number 3 team in the Big 12 standings-wise. And I think I would probably lean Baylor, A, because they did lose the first one as a 7.5-point favorite at home, and B, just because bouncing back off Saturday's loss, I think, is a probability here.
All right, should be a good one, guys. Big 12 road favorites, 15-7 straight up this season, 68%, and also the under 5-0 in K-State's last 5 home games. We'll see if both of those trends continue here tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern time tip there. We'll head over to the SEC, where another really intriguing matchup here, one that'll pit the Aggies here, the Texas A&M Aggies taking on the Tennessee Vols. A&M a 2.5-point favorite right now, and the total 129.5. And boy, oh boy, A&M just ferocious here, especially at home. They're like, not on our home court. Tennessee has been a little banged up, both on the court there and in the final scores, Marco, over the last couple of weeks. Do you trust Tennessee to score enough and make this a 1-possession game with a chance to win at the end, or is it you ain't getting in front of this A&M home streak rolling right now?
Well, Joe, this is probably my weakest of the games we're going to preview, and it's all because of the uncertainty of Phillips and James for Tennessee. James has missed 4 games, and as you pointed out, the last 4 games have not been good. They're 1-3 straight up in their last 4 games. Phillips has missed the last 2 games. They're both listed as questionable. They've been listed as questionable the last couple games with game time decisions. and the game time decision has been they haven't played. So if they're not on the court tonight, I really don't want to take Tennessee. I want to see at least one of them on the court. If we do get them, I think Tennessee has a big shot to go in there and beat Texas A&M. I think overall, healthy, they're the better team. Now, I know Texas A&M has won 5 in a row, as you pointed out, but honestly, only one of those 5 teams were in the top 6 of the SEC. Now, I know the SEC runs pretty deep, but I still like to look at top and bottom, and they got to show me they can do it, with the better teams. And Tennessee is definitely one of the best teams in the SEC, maybe the best team when they're healthy. So if you put the old gun to my head, I'll take Tennessee. 2 stats for you. Tennessee, when the total has been 129.5 or less the last 2 seasons, they're a perfect 6-0. They like to play those games where you get down and muck it up around the boards and be physical. That's their style. They can play that way, 6-0 to the spread. Also, following a game where they didn't cover the spread the last 2 years, they're a good bounce back team, 17-8 against the spread. But that, again, is with all hands on deck. So let's see what we get tonight. Watch for injury updates, and watch the odds board, because I'll tell you, about an hour before game time, if you see this thing tick down, they're in the lineup.
Yeah, it could be a pick 'em before it's all said and done. That is for sure here. What do you think, Trig? A&M at home has proved to be pretty darn tough. They usually have a huge rebounding edge against teams, but don't think that's going to be the case against Tennessee. What do you think we get here tonight?
Yeah, that won't be the case here. Tennessee's top 10 rebounding team. I agree with Marco. If these guys are in, I think Tennessee might be the better team regardless. But if these guys are in, there's no question in my mind Tennessee is the superior team. And if you can figure that out while this is still 2.5 or 2, then I think that's probably a really good bet. Marco alluded to it. Texas A&M drew the easiest schedule of anyone in the SEC this year. The SEC does not play a balanced schedule. So they are, that is a conference where, some teams are going to play easier schedules than others. Texas A&M has arguably the easiest. And as far as just the matchup is concerned, so the one concern, and I'm going to steal this from Drew Martin, who brought it up on our show on Wednesday on the Hustle. Texas A&M's won 5 straight. They've done so by essentially moving Wade Taylor to the point guard position, having him be the primary ball handler and having him be the point of attack type of playmaker. Texas A&M 7-1, but a lot of that is predicated on sort of that change in philosophy there. So that's sort of one thing that keeps me from wanting to fade Texas A&M, because I don't know if everyone's figured that out yet and if their current form sort of reflects what they've done all season. But I still think Tennessee is the more well-rounded team. Again, even if I wouldn't recommend betting this if those players are out, but if you can get some info before the masses get it that these 2 guys are going to play, and you can get a 2.5 or 2, I think in that case Tennessee would be a pretty good bet. So my lean will be Tennessee, similar to Marco. Tennessee, if these guys are in and you can get the 2 or better, I would fire on that late.
Always funny, watching Buzz Williams on the sidelines. We've seen that a lot of. We've had conversations there. He is a little bit animated there, but his team certainly has a level of toughness, right? Since we're talking about 12-2 here over the last month or so since the new year. They've been phenomenal at home. Now here comes I don't know. Is it a buy low spot on Tennessee for you, or do you trust A&M to hold serve here?
Well, my initial reaction with the overnights and knowing that I was going to be the $2 handicapper was I should be looking at Tennessee. However, both of these guys brought it up. It's just way too difficult to do without Phillips and James. You're talking about the number 4 and 5 scorers on this team that you take away. And besides the offense, guys, you take a look at Tennessee's field goal percentages allowed over the course of the SEC season. They had only allowed 43% or better to a team 3 times in their first 11 games. And since these 2 guys have been out, it's been done 3 times already in 4 games. So Defensively, they're hurt without these guys. Offensively, they're hurt without these guys. They're not the greatest offensive team to begin with, but the defensive metrics certainly show Tennessee capable of putting up some type of resistance if they play, and probably more than just some type, but serious resistance if these guys play. So injury being what it is, Joe, and guesswork being what it is in this case, it's difficult. I would think that this game in particular becomes, no matter who's on the floor, I think this game becomes some sort of rock fight, so to speak, a defensive battle, and maybe 129 is too heavy of a total here. Modern day college basketball, boy, I hate playing under a number like this. However, Tennessee, with everybody on the floor, can lock up the A&M squad, I would think for sure. The home crowd is going to be something to key on here if you like A&M, because there's a couple of quotes out of Tennessee where they're talking about how their energy level has to be there in this game to match this home crowd. So if they're worried about it already, I don't know if it's going to help them to know about it ahead of time, or if they're scared of it ahead of time. It's hard to tell what the mindset is here. I think all things being equal and not really knowing the status of Phillips and James, I would look under. And again, I agree with both Marco and I think Adam was even higher on it. If they play, you have to be on Tennessee here. But then again, the price tag will probably be 5.5 by that point if they both play.
Yeah, that's a good point there. Should be a good one here, guys. Big game for both those teams here tonight. And we got one more heavyweight fight that we're going to take a look at here. This one's going to be in the Big East as Marquette, Shaka Smart and the boys heading over to Omaha to take on the Creighton Blue Jays. 5.5 is what Creighton is laying. The total 146.5. Marquette been rolling 12-2 in its last 14. It does have a pair of losses there, and that being on the road to Xavier and UConn. And Creighton, I mean, looking to avenge that early season loss to Marquette here. It's a crazy spot here, Marco, with a crazy number. How are you approaching this game?
Yeah, I'm glad you said crazy number, because when I looked at this number, I had to look at it twice. I'm saying, are you kidding me? You're giving Marquette 5.5, and I'm saying, man, Joe Blow Public's going to want to grab Marquette and that many points right away. And if you want to do a comparison, look at the last home game for Creighton. They were minus 4.5 to Connecticut. Marquette's in first place, and they're giving Marquette more. So you know me, I'm a contrarian. Most people would say, oh, well, the value's on Marquette. I don't buy it that way. I look the other way and say, they're begging you to take Marquette in this game. Creighton, 12-1 straight up at home. They need this win if they want to try to catch Marquette. Marquette's been there all year. I like them. Creighton is playing their best ball of the year. They've won 9 of the last 10 games, and it's been fueled by that stellar defense. They've held 6 of their last 7 opponents to 67 points or less. Marquette wants to, go up and down the floor. I think Creighton's going to frustrate them tonight. And note, and I had to double check this stat as well. In that first meeting at Marquette, in which Marquette did beat Creighton 69-58, I've never seen a line like this. Creighton was just 4 of 20 from three-point land. Okay, you see teams struggle there. They only got to the foul line 5 times in the entire game. You want to talk about a little bit of home cooking? I think we might see a little reversal of that tonight. I'm going to take Creighton. There's only one way for me to play it with that. Take Creighton minus the points, and it's going to be one of those ones where you're looking at it and saying, wow, man, 5.5 looks awful tempting with this Marquette team. And then in the end, you see a 7 or 8 point Creighton victory because they pull away late.
Yeah, I mean, since the middle of January, Trig, we're looking at a Creighton team that's on a 9-1 run here. The only loss, I believe, was a double overtime loss. And correct me if I'm wrong, that first go around, Calbrennan wasn't playing, right? That was where he got hurt, and then they kind of all hell broke loose with Creighton. He's back tonight. Is it enough to make you want to lay it with them?
Yeah, Joe. So first of all, he did not play. He had mono in the first
Oh,
meeting.
yes.
Did not play. Probably a big reason. Marco referenced the foul line. Like without Kalkbrenner, Creighton's not getting to the line, and that's kind of my. I guess that's my one criticism of this Creighton team. They turn into a jump shooting team at times, and Marquette did a good job of forcing them into jumpers that first time around. And Joe, I rarely have a totals take, but I'm going to give you one here. That's sort of, and we'll start there. I like the under. It's been bet down a little bit. I
Mm.
don't disagree with Marco either. And the reason I'll give for that, I was at the Marquette UConn game. It was Marquette's worst game of the season. They got blown out, but a big reason for that is the size on the interior, sort of forcing Marquette to shoot threes, and it just gets them out of their that interior size got Marquette out of their offense, which has been sort of Marquette's calling card, right? Like Marquette, 80.7 points per game. They're 19th in the country there, fifth in the country in field goal percentage. And now with Kalkbrenner back, Creighton's defense can be more like UConn's defense in that regard, where they're going to have Kalkbrenner in the paint. He's a great shot blocker, a great rebounder. He's going to force Marquette away from the rim. So that I think that supports Marco's lean on Creighton. But I also think maybe an even better take is this playing under, because I do still think Creighton turns into a jump shooting team at times. And this isn't like those Creighton teams of maybe a couple years ago that were just absolutely lethal shooters. They're shooting, their 3-point shooting is good. It's not great. They can get hot, but it's not something that they're going to do on a regular basis. So this was a really high number. I think it opened up at like the total was like 149.
Hmm.
It's been bet down a little bit, but you go back to that first meeting, 69-58. Even if you're a little bit faster paced, a little bit higher scoring, you're still going to need quite an efficient game to get up and over this total. And I'm not sure that Marquette hits their usual efficiency numbers against Creighton with Kalkbrenner in the middle, because it's gonna make them uncomfortable, similar to what UConn did. And I think you get a more uncomfortable offensive performance from Marquette. But Marquette, they're great as an underdog. Shock always has a good game plan, and I'm not sure Creighton lights it up either. So I'll lean with Marco toward Creighton, but I really think the under is the best way to go in this game.
The under, it was my first reaction too, Vino. When you saw this, I don't think Creighton's defense gets enough credit for how good they really are in shutting teams down, especially from the perimeter. But when you saw this 5.5, like Mart, were you scratching your head, or did you have a feeling one way or the other?
Well, my initial feeling was still Creighton, Joe. I mean, I'm of the opinion that Creighton's the best team in that league, with Kalkbrenner. So for me, it's a revenge situation. Your big guy is back. Creighton's been on a tremendous run. Um, as somebody who always has an opinion on totals, the polar opposite of Adam, um, I checked into it, and I can't say that I disagree with him. Generally I'll be on overs, but and there's reasons to support it. I mean, Marquette is 6-2, over 148 on the Big East Road this year. This number's down to 146. So certainly they've played 75% of their road games in conference over this
Mm.
number. They're off their worst shooting percentage this season. Saturday against Xavier, they shot 38.2 from the field, 22.7 from three. So you think maybe there's a little bit of bounce back there. Of course, that's all speculation. And Creighton didn't really shoot it all that well against St. John. So maybe you get two teams that, as Adam said, you'd have to have some streaky shooting here. Maybe you get it, maybe you don't. It kept me off of over, but put me on Creighton for multiple reasons, and some of it was already discussed. But when you play Marquette, when you play Shaka Smart all the way back to BCU, all you got to do is break their press. And I say all you got to do. It's difficult to do, but you have to have the ball handlers. Creighton turned the ball over 18 times in the first game.
Mm.
That can't happen here. But again, they have veteran ball handlers. What was missing was that big centerpiece. When you're trying to break a press, you're trying to get it to a big guy to dish it off to somebody else and get your way down the floor. If you can get to Marquette's half-court defense, like any other year with Shaka Smart, it stinks. You can score 2-pointers. You can score 3-pointers. That whole defense is predicated on stealing or taking the ball away from you, getting you out of your offensive rhythm. I don't know that happens here. It did happen first game. They took advantage of Creighton without their big guy. I don't think it happens here. And some points were made about how good Creighton's defense has been. I think that's where the huge disparity is in this game. Creighton's defense against Marquette's defense, which is somewhat gimmicky. It does a great job at what it does, but they're not a complete defense. So, if you break it down to 3-point shooters here or free throw shooting, even, I mean, Creighton's the superior free throw shooting team. So if you're trying to extend margin at the end of the game, Creighton's really good at that. They've got 3 guys that shoot over 80% from the free throw line that do get there. Um, I think you have to side with them. I really do. I think they're 3-point shooters. It was funny. Arthur Kaluma, who came into the season as one of their top 3-point guys, has not had a great year, but had some big ones against St. John's over the weekend. And his coach, McDermott, said potentially that breaks him out of this and gets him going here. So there's no better time to get going than at the end of the year. I think Creighton's going right now. So I would play them minus the 5.5.
Yeah, and it doesn't get enough credit, but Greg McDermott, quietly one of the better coaches in college basketball. He gets his teams ready to play these last couple of weeks of the season. And over the last 5 years, Creighton at home in the last 2 weeks, 9-1 straight up and against the number. Creighton usually comes to play this time of year. We'll see if they can keep that rolling here tonight against Marquette at home, laying that 5.5. And as you can tell, guys, there's a lot of games like this on the board here tonight in college hoops. So opportunities certainly presenting themselves here in the final couple of weeks of the regular season. The question is, which one of these games do these guys like a little bit more than the rest? And Marco, we'll kick it off with you and your 91-48 basketball record since Thanksgiving. Obnoxious is what it is. So tell us, which one of these games might you have circled for us here tonight?
Well, we're going to go to the Big Ten and look at the Indiana-Michigan State game. Now, full disclosure, one of my losses of those 48 was Michigan State on Saturday. I thought they would fare better against Michigan. Not a big fan of this Michigan team, but they're coming back home looking to bounce back tonight. They're catching an Indiana team that, quite frankly, hasn't done much wrong over the last month. But this is one of those spots where I'm looking, and I'm a situational guy. This is a horrible spot for Indiana. First of all, they're coming off a war on Saturday. They got the job done against Illinois. They won 71-68. They didn't get the cover. Indiana's been, playing good basketball, but Illinois is another team that's been playing well also. But here's the thing. This is going to be their third road game out of the last 4. And it's going to be 4 different cities in 10 days for Indiana. And they've got a big game coming up on the weekend. They play Purdue up next. So talking scheduling spots, this is just a big negative for me as far as Indiana goes. Another angle that I like to use, I've used this for years, and this year it's winning at a very high rate, more than normal, but it's a great angle, and it's simple. If you want to do something and just follow something blindly, you get a ranked team versus an unranked team, and the unranked team is the favorite. That's been cashing at over a 60% rate this season. That's what you have with Michigan State. Now, Michigan State, obviously, you look at their win-loss record, doesn't look as good as past Michigan State teams, but they have been playing better basketball in the month of February. And that goes back, for me, to November. Tom Izzo is never ducks anybody on the schedule at the beginning of the season. This is a guy, while so many coaches like to schedule cupcakes and little sisters of the poor to pad the stats, he opened the season in November. 5 teams he played in a 2-week period: Gonzaga, Kentucky, Villanova, Alabama, and Oregon. And all of those games, except the Villanova game, were either on the road or a neutral site. That makes a team battle-tested for later in the year when you get to the conference tournament and if you get yourself into the big dance. And speaking of the big dance, Michigan State's got to get their dancing shoes on here the last 2 weeks if they're going to want to get to the big dance because of that record. They need a couple of signature wins. Their early season schedule will help them when the selection committee is looking at who gets in at the end. But they need a couple wins late in the season to do that. And I think this is one of them tonight. Last stat I'll throw out at you: Indiana, last 2 seasons, just 5-14 against the spread on the road. Let's go ahead and go with the Spartans tonight. Lay the 3.
Laying the 3 here with Izzo and the Spartans tonight for Marco. And don't forget to visit him over at WagerTalk.com. Guys, hop on board there. Crushing it, needless to say, on the hardwood. Visit Marco now over at his page at WagerTalk.com. And while you're there, take a look at Trig as well, because Trig, I know you got, well, I'm going to be interested to see which one of these games on the card tonight did you circle for us for a best bet?
Yeah, so I'll give one of my 4% plays for tonight. And that's Missouri State minus 5.5. Listen, I've taken an interest in this Missouri State team. I went to their very first competitive game of the season back out in Provo, Utah in November. So I've been kind of following them since. And this is just the perfect spot, scenario, opponent for them to bounce back off of 2 losses and get a win here. They lost at a 5%er last week, plus 10. They could have just walked in a layup and covered for me. Instead, they fired up a 3 and missed. It landed right on 10. Over the weekend, they lost to Northern Iowa, but those were as an underdog in tough matchups. This, a much better matchup. Murray State, 3-10 on the road this season. Murray State has not, they come in off back-to-back wins. They have not won 3 straight games all season long. They are a work-in-progress type team in a new conference that somehow won the first meeting between these 2 teams at home in a game where they shot 9 more free throws than Missouri State. If you know anything about how these teams play, you'll know that stat will probably flip here. Missouri State, their kind of identity is being this like scrappy team. They're not great offensively. They rebound hard. They play hard on the defensive end. They contest shots, and they kind of count on Donovan Clay to do it all. But they're not going to have to do that here because Murray State is not a good defensive team. They should get more offense than they usually do. And so if they can win the free throw battle, which I'm shocked that they lost in the first meeting, they should easily be able to pull away in this game. So, Joe, I'm going to lay the 5.5 points. We got Missouri State coming in off 2 losses. We have a revenge angle. And we have Murray State, who has yet to win 3 straight games all season long. And they're on the road coming off 2 straight wins. They're 3-10 on the road. It all just lines up here for me. I'm going to lay the 5.5. Missouri State, 4% play. I think they blow them out.
Yep, love that. All right, Missouri State it is for Trig. Visit him over at WagerTalk.com. Make sure you head over to Vino as well, who is the $2 handicapper today. That means his best bet tonight, guys, $2. Just head over to his page, WagerTalk.com. Grab that play and give us one here for the show. Vino, which game did you circle for us?
Well, I want to go back to what we talked about last. I'll play Creighton as the best bet for the show, Joe. I'll lay the 5.5 here. One thing that I can add to the previous analysis is the fact that Creighton wins this game, and if Xavier wins early, you're talking about 3 teams at 13-4 in the Big East. Creighton can pull themselves into a first-place tie with Marquette, at least. We'll see what Xavier does, but it could be a 3-way tie for first place. So huge importance on this game for Creighton. And if you just examine what Marquette has done on the Big East road this year, games they didn't cover on the road, Xavier, Providence, and UConn, 3 of the 5 best in the league. Games they did cover on the road, St. John's, DePaul, and Georgetown, 3 of the 4 worst in the league. They did cover Seton Hall, who absolutely rides the middle of this conference, but they haven't beaten any of the elites in the Big East on the road, at least covered any of the elites on the road this season. So I don't think it starts here. I'm going to go with Creighton in the revenge spot with their big guy back. He means everything to that team. Give me Creighton minus the 5.5 tonight over Marquette.
Boom! Laying it with Creighton to get it done. And our good friends over at the Gold Sheet, they've got a play of the day. And look at that write-up. This and many, many others are available over at goldsheet.com, guys. So we would absolutely suggest you head over to goldsheet.com, take advantage of this data and this info as they are back in the U on the road against Va tonight. They're pointing out that Miami's won 13 consecutive road games over the last 2 seasons. That their offense also leads the ACC in efficiency, effective field goal shooting, and three-point shooting. Not to mention Miami, well, is a top 15 in the country from the free throw line. When you put it all together, Miami getting points at Va Tech, our friends at the Gold Sheet, they are hopping aboard. All right, we did well. I want to thank Louisville for not losing by more than 18.5 last night. Thank you very much. Who the hell is Duke to lay 18.5 against anybody? But I got a blowout alert here tonight, and I am going to go with the Ohio Bobcats right now, who happen to be one of the hottest teams in the MAC. They've won 5 in a row here. They're playing their best basketball down the stretch, and they're taking on a Northern Illinois team that just threw up all over themselves, blowing a 20-point lead in 9 minutes there at home against Miami of Ohio last week. They've already played, and Ohio already beat them at Northern Illinois. Ohio gets them home tonight, and this has got blowout written all over it. I'll lay the 11.5 tonight. I fully anticipate a crushing loss by Northern Illinois. And to recap it one more time, Michigan State is where Marco is going. He laying the 3 here against Indiana, while Trig, one of his 4% best bets, is Mizzou State. Lay the 5.5 or a play. Yeah, 5.5 here tonight at home against Murray State. Vino, another with the 5s here. Creighton laying it here tonight at home against Marquette in the Big East. I'm going to go with Ohio. I'll lay the 11.5 against Northern Illinois. And our friends from the Gold Sheet, they're going to take those 2.5 points with the U tonight, taking on Va Tech. And guys, don't forget, over at WagerTalk.com, 3 of the best right now available to you here. Marco D'Angelo and his obnoxious record ready to roll here tonight, guys. Not to mention Trig, his best bet, ready to go there at WagerTalk.com. And just hop on board. You can see it there on the screen. Rob Vino, $2 handicapper here tonight. His best bet, $2 right now. Hop on board. Partner up with these guys. There is no reason not to make this one hell of a profitable week here as we are winding down the regular season of college basketball. It is hard to believe, guys, but just a couple of more weeks left, conference tournaments, and then what is known as just total craziness. The madness that is March will be upon us, and we are looking so very forward to it. But a lot of tickets to cash between now and then. Hope you'll come back and join us again tomorrow. We'll do it one more time here, getting you ready for another great slate in college hoops. But until then, on behalf of Marco, Adam Trigger, and Rob Vino, guys, we appreciate the time. Best of luck with all the plays here tonight. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. See you soon.
While the 2022-2023 football season officially ends today on Super Bowl Sunday, for many sports betting fans, college hoops in February and March is one of the most exciting times in sports. Whether you love college hoops or just want to pad your bankroll heading into March Madness, we have the perfect special. Starting today, get the rest of February with any WagerTalk or Sports Memo handicapper for only $149 each. So to finish off February for as little as $9 per day, head over to your favorite WagerTalk and or Sports Memo handicappers page and grab this limited time offer. This offer includes not only college basketball, but also any NBA, NHL, UFC, soccer, golf, and NASCAR that your favorite WagerTalk and or Sports Memo expert handicaps. No coupon is needed. The earlier you sign up, the more days you get.